Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast with PJ and Mike. Now find yourself a seat at their table.
Merry Christmas and welcome to this week's episode of the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. I'm PJ.
And I'm Mike.
And this week we are going to be rebooting some Christmas classics, giving our own pitches for Christmas movies, talking about some other Christmas or holiday movies that aren't Christmas that we think might need to exist in the world that don't currently exist. And, we're going to just continue our holiday extravaganza with our third Christmas episode. So yeah, do we have a childhood memory for today?
Yeah, ours is, what was the worst Christmas present you ever received? Now, before we go, so I want to tell the audience, of course, we're grateful for even getting presents, whether it's as a kid or as an adult, of course. We're just talking about ones that maybe not the best.
Right.
So,
So, I think the easiest one is when you're a kid, the worst thing to do is open up a box and it's like clothes.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I got underwear and socks. Like, I can't fight Lord Zed in the shredder with wearing socks. Like, what am I going to do with this? I don't need this. Or like slipper socks. You ever get slipper socks?
Yeah.
Like with treads on the bottom, you're just like, I'm never going to wear slipper socks. Now as like an old person, I'm like, God, I wish someone would just get me underwear and slipper socks.
Right. I think also as a kid, like, I remember my parents used to get me this. It was like, I call it like educational toys, It would be like, not like a comic book, but like some kind of like reading book. I remember one year, my aunt got me like, basically like hooked on phonics. I felt so embarrassed. I'm like, what the fuck is this? What kind of gift is this? I think, though, one as a kid, though, I remember that, I wouldn't say it was a bad gift. It was actually, wasn't like, the present itself wasn't, like the person gave that wasn't the issue. It's something I actually asked for. It was actually an X-Men toy. So, PJ, you might know what I'm talking about. So, back in the 90s, when I saw this at Toys R Us magazine or where it was a Sears catalog, it was like the X-Men collection. And it came
I know exactly where you're going with this.
And it had like two rows. So the row had like all the heroes and it had all the villains on the bottom. Let's say. Right, so when I got this, I think my grandparents got it for me. We had Christmas at my aunt's house. Excuse me. And I remember I was like bugging out. I'm like, yes. So I go to like, oh yeah, you can play with it. So I open it up, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, these toys they're not toys. They're stuck on. It's a display. It's not even.
You can't take them off. You can't play with them.
So, dude, I was like devastated. I was like crying. I'm like, why would they design something like this? Because you had all the classics, and I'm like, they were just basically glued to this platform. They weren't even posable. They were frozen.
It's just a display piece. Yep, it's the most disappointing thing in the world, that X-Men gift.
It was
crushing. Like, why would they do that? Every one of the X-Men and the villains came with this thing. So you think you have like a complete collection by getting this one box, and then it sits there. All you can do is look at it.
Yep, it was awful, and I can't believe they even put that like in the. I guess you put that in the toy section, but like I don't know. I think they should have really emphasized like this is a display only. So yeah, that was crushing, man.
That's like one of the first things that I remember that was like made for collectors and not for playing.
Yeah, that was rough. Oof. Mm-hmm.
It was like the Mutant Hall of Fame or the X-Men Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Wow, good memory. Yeah. And I still see it in my mind too, because I was all excited because I had like Iceman and I had all these characters. I think
it had Wolverine, Cyclops. I think it was Colossus. I forget who was on it.
Yeah, all the classics, all the OGs, man. And it was just oof. What a design. But yeah. But of course,
great.
What'd you say? I'm sorry?
It looked great. You just couldn't
play with it. Oh, if you're a collector, that was the thing to get. But as what was I, 10, 9 years old, wherever I was. Oof,
yeah, I want to just play with the damn thing.
Crushing. But yeah, probably worst gift, maybe worst toy design or advertisement for that thing. But folks, we're going to be moving right along. So today, PJ and I our goal, we did this in the past, where we rebooted a film, or we remade it in our own creation, our own mind. So, PJ and I are not writers, folks, so this is, I guess you could say, fan fiction, but it's always kind of fun to do this. And, yeah, excuse me. Yeah, folks, if you hear me all of a sudden cut out, that's because I got sick during my honeymoon. So, anyway, I know in the future, PJ and I will have a traveling episode where we talk about maybe the good and the bad, the ugly of traveling. And yes, but anyway, that's for the future, guys, and we'll talk about that later in another episode about the future. But PJ, kick us off. I'm really excited about your Christmas reboot or remake.
Sure. Let me take a sip of water, and then I'm going to jump right in.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
So the movie I chose to reboot was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Wow. Okay. Great.
Yeah. So I went in a completely different direction with it. It is not at all like the classic. So my movie starts off in Eastern Europe, Eastern European countries, like a Ukraine.
All right.
The setting is a Chernobyl-esque nuclear plant.
Whoa.
Yeah. So obviously the movie starts. There's a big explosion, nuclear fire. It takes out this entire section of, like I said, you call it the Ukraine because that's where Chernobyl is, but that's setting, right?
Right. Is this take place in the 80s too? I don't know if I missed the year you said.
It could. Yeah, like the 80s-ish is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how it kind of starts, and you just see like the fire expanding, right? So now, picture you see the thing. There's an explosion, and now you just see the area just turning to ash and dust. There's fire. There's nuclear shit going on everywhere, right? And then it kind of fades to black, and then we pick up a little bit later on where it's after the fire. It's like maybe a year later, 2 years later, right?
Right.
And now is when we start to introduce our characters and who we're going to see. So, the first person we meet is Nicholas.
All right.
Yeah. And he's in a hazmat suit. It's a big hazmat suit. The hazmat suit is red.
All right.
And it's red and white because it's supposed to be, that's your Santa.
Right. Yeah, I got you. I know where you're going with this, PJ. I feel it. Mm-hmm.
He's, we picture a big fat Santa all the time, right? Big belly. It's not that he's a big fat Santa. It's the hazmat suit. He needs that many layers to protect him from the ongoing radiation. So that's how we get our look of Santa. Then we start to see what are the elves. The elves are the people that didn't die in the fire, but they have radiation poisoning. They're all drawn in. The radiation has deformed them, so it makes them look like they have pointy ears, but it's just, they're, an old person, their ears start to look very big.
Yep.
That's kind of the look that we're going for here. So it's more of a creepy vibe, almost like a Smeagol or a Golem kind of look, right?
Gotcha.
And that's all from the radiation poisoning and the lack of, food and everything else that they have there. So that's how we get to our elves. Those are the people that were working in the factory. The Nicholas, our Santa Claus character, he's the one who goes to the factory to drop off the like food and care packages and things to and he goes once a year, and whatever he brings is what they have to live off of for the entire year, and he chooses to do that on the night of December 24th every year. That's get Santa Claus delivering gifts and things like that. So now, the one year what happens is this is technically our North Pole, but we're not seeing snow and ice. What we're seeing, it gives the impression of snow and ice, is all of the ash.
Yep.
Fire. That's what, and all the debris blowing around looks like blizzards and snow and things like that, right? So now on this particular Christmas Eve, Santa needs to, or Nicholas needs to bring the stuff to the factory, to the plant where these elves are, and he can't because the weather is shitty and it's blowing up all of the dust and the ash. So he has no way to get to these people who rely on him to bring their supplies once a year. While he's trying to get there, he befriends a reindeer.
Right.
Now, the reindeer lives in the forest that has been, exposed to
contaminated. Yep.
Right. So the radiation mutates this particular reindeer, who he names Rudolph.
Wow.
And now his nose glows red.
Right.
And now they have to travel through the radiated forest, and the only way he can see through it is because this reindeer's nose glows red.
Right.
With the radiation, and that's how he kind of lights the way. And through the travels, there are other creatures that have been mutated, like bears, things like that, but they kind of give off the impression of maybe an abominable snowman look or something like that. Some of the, he meets other characters that are not exactly the characters from the Rankin Bass movie,
Right.
but are reminiscent, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he might see a guy with a big beard that kind of reminds you of a Yukon Cornelius who's
Maybe he gets lost. Even
right.
though Rudolph has his nose, he meets like a guy like him.
Exactly. Right.
Like a dog sled guy.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And then you kind of find other people who are living in these outskirts who are kind of like cast aside by society because they have radiation poisoning. They don't want them near them. That's your island of misfit toys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's and then eventually he gets there and he was able to bring the supplies and stuff to the elf type characters that
right.
They kind of have that appearance of elves. They're not the one making toys or anything, but just to try and tie it together, that's kind of the look that we're going for with them. And it's more of a horror-esque, 80s kind of vibe with that. Almost think Stranger Things, even though it was maybe the worst season when they're in Russia and
yeah.
That kind of a vibe, something sort of like that.
Yeah, I also get the vibe of like Gremlins, the first one, which takes place during Christmas, that kind of creature feature kind of thing. And I thought you were also going to talk about like, in my mind, when I was playing this picture, I see I guess like everyone's talking about like almost like an urban legend about like the abominable snowman.
Right,
and like maybe along the way they encounter this beast, and maybe just looking for a friend who gives them like candy canes or something like that. That's like the twist. That's what I was imagining. Yeah.
Well, all the radiation makes people feel nauseous, and they say peppermint helps with that, so that's why he gives out candy canes.
Oh,
there you go.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to go in a different direction because the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer has been told 500,000 times,
right.
but I don't think I can remember a time when it was told in a much different horror, sort of darker creature feature sort of a way. I don't remember that in any of the iterations I've ever seen, so I wanted to take it in that direction.
Yeah. Well, I think I know the title of the film. I think it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So my question is, who would you direct it? Who would you want to direct it? Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. Who would I want to direct that? I kind of see it as maybe not necessarily a big name director, but someone who does those B-level horror movies where it is those creature feature kind of things. Those guys don't necessarily have big followings or big names, but they understand that sort of that's sort of an atmosphere and that sort of a movie. I can't think of the guy's name, but he directed a lot of episodes of The Walking Dead.
Oh, okay.
I can't. Is it Greg Nicotero? I forget his name, but
I think you're right. Yeah.
But like someone like that who kind of has an idea of like zombies and horror or something in that respect, and I think that would be the direction I would go. I would want it to feel horror like, and someone who has the movie like this is going to have a lot of makeup and practical effects to make these people look exaggerated. Peter Jackson would be someone that could pull it off.
Right.
But I that might be a little below him.
Right. In my mind, I also see like John Carpenter, like he did like The Thing, and I picture like that snow and that kind of effects. And
yeah, I could definitely see something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to go back to the well with David Harbour or Santa because he's already done it. But that kind of person.
Yes. Yep. I was gonna say, who would you have as your Nicholas? Mm-hmm.
I would want it to be someone like that because I think that a little bit more rugged and things. But he's already been Santa, so I wouldn't pick a different person. But someone in that vein.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. Yeah. I like it, PJ. Very good. Mm-hmm.
All right. So what about you? What do you got going there for your reboot?
So for my reboot, I picked Frosty the Snowman.
Oh, okay. So we went with classics.
Yeah. So
classic.
Mine is a live action. Okay. So we're not gonna. And this isn't like I call it like not Disney live action where it's like all CG and they just have someone in front of a green screen. This is like practical effects and everything. So I'm trying to also like keep some of the original stuff in here. But This movie takes place. I think the original movie, if my research was correct, was 1979 when that was released. You know, so anyway, I don't want any cell phones in this movie. I don't know about you, PJ, but sometimes when I see a cell phone in a movie, it kind of turns me off. Unless if it's done well, like if you think about have you ever seen a movie like The Departed? You know, but sometimes I get a little turned off now when I see too many cell phones in it. And,
I think it dates the movie because when you have technology like that keeps evolving, now when you see the movie 5-10 years later, it just completely dates it. I like to think of like the Batman the Animated Series. That show could take place anytime because they don't show cell phones. The cars are they classic? Are they current?
yeah,
This way it becomes more timeless. I agree.
right. So So it stars a Karen. That's the name of the main character. She's about 10 years old, and she's like a brat, okay? Like a Karen's, okay? So she's like kind of mean to her younger brother. She's like bratty. She's like defiant, ungrateful. You know, she doesn't really have any friends. Like she does, but they're not really like tight with her. She's really much kind of like basically like a loner, right? So like one day she convinces her friends and her little brother, who's about 5, to destroy the town snowman in the town village. Okay,
Oh no!
and she just yeah, right. She like decapitates them, whatever you want to do. Okay, so anyway, they all get caught. You know, they all get punished. Blah blah blah. Karen gets the brunt of it. Right, she was the oldest. She kind of bullied these little kids into destroying this thing. And like it's in a town square. And basically, like the people who made these snowmen was like these senior citizens right across the senior citizen center. So it's like these old, this snowman is just smashed to pieces. So and she has like no remorse, Karen. You know, she downplays it. You know, and she definitely just doesn't care. So her parents take her and her little brother to see Santa in the mall, right? And the parents don't really want to take their daughter; they just kind of have to by default, right? So her brother goes, and he gets like he finds out he's on the nice list, and he gets like an ornament of Rudolph. That's what I put. So, Karen goes and Santa goes, "Oh, you're on the naughty list." And this girl's like floored, and she goes bugging out like, "You're not even a real Santa. You only work for him. You're an imposter." And she leaves empty-handed. Like, look, he's like, "You're on the naughty list. That's it." So, they go back home, but Karen decides to go back. She sneaks out of the house. She goes back to the mall to get this Santa as he's leaving work. So she ambushes him, and she just basically says, like, "Look, you gotta rescind. You gotta like take back that statement that I'm on the naughty list. You can't do that." And he goes, "Look, I can't get you off the naughty list. Only you can do that." So she demands some kind of constellation prize regardless. Like, look, I can't leave empty-handed. You got to give me something here. So he gives her his top hat, his old top hat. And she's just like, what? This old farty hat. So a part of her, retribution for destroying the snowman and other like decoration, she has to rebuild the snowman by herself. So, of course, the last thing she puts on it is the snowman, and he becomes alive. And she's, like, bugging out. She's scared. She tries to tell others. No one believes her. Everyone thinks she's a liar. So she feels even more isolated, But Frosty's, like, kind of like a kid himself, like very naive. Anyway, inside the hat, there's a writing that says, like, you have till Christmas Eve, to find Christmas spirit, or Frosty's, so she has to find Christmas spirit in order to get the, nice list, and Frosty's gonna melt. So right. They're both under the gun here, so they both gotta, find that spirit. So anyway, throughout the thing, it's kind of like little adventure. She tries to like redeem herself, learns to like express gratitude and be friends, all that kind of stuff. And I guess on Christmas Eve, I guess there's a way in the movie, I guess you could figure out she's still on the naughty list. She's like, what's going on here? So Frosty basically like kind of dies. He doesn't melt. He just goes back to like a frozen form. But I guess as the climax of the film, on Christmas Eve, the town has like a tree lighting, the same place where they had the town square. So I guess this is where she can like redeem herself. It's like, look, I'm sorry. I apologize, and I could do better. And she really, kind of like,
right.
Like the warm part of the film, blah, 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 so everyone like forgives her. The tree lights up. she feels really good, and she's content that, like, maybe she's even on the minority list next year, she can get on it. She's like accepted it. You know what I mean? That's kind of like her lesson in life. You got, hey, make mistakes, you got to fix the music kind of thing. But anyway, at the end, when she's like in the courtyard by herself, Frosty comes live. He's like, "You did a great job. We made it. We're on the nice list and all that crap." So when she's like hanging out with Frosty, she sees that Santa. I guess a little plot twist. He's actually the real Santa. And she like goes up to him and she's like, "Are you the real Santa?" He's like, "Yeah, of course I am." I said, he goes, "I just need my hat back, so I could take Frosty back to the North Pole." Everyone's like, flipping out. So that's my story, PJ. The Frosty reboot.
That's a heartwarming, charming Christmas story.
Thank you. Yeah, I felt like
opposite directions.
Yes. And I think for me, I was just in my mind, I'm like, look, I can't, look, I'm not a writer. For me, it's like you can't top, these classics like Home Alone. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna go like not the Hallmark level, but that like mid-level. I feel like this movie would make money. Maybe it'd be like a nice little classic that starts to build a little following, make some money, make some dough on it.
Who's the voice of Frosty? Who would you pick as the voice of Frosty?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Part of me feels like, I don't know if this is like he's done a lot of cartoons, but like John Goodman, I feel like
I can see that.
I feel like I need like a nice like a nice kind of like warm voice, like deep kind of voice. That's a really good question. I haven't really even thought about it.
Was there a narration like in the original cartoon?
Oh yeah, that's I think Maybe I would have get some OGs, get like Patrick Stewart or Ian McKellen, that kind of like nice voice.
Yeah, I can see that. You know who I'm thinking might be my Santa in my movie as we're thinking? Maybe someone like a Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Hey, he could be because he could be a little rough, but he's also, I think he could pull off the Nicholas character in mine. Yeah, I think that might be my Santa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure for mine. I need like an older man, like a man who's like very stately. I feel like Michael Caine's too old now, but I feel like someone maybe like a Gary Oldman, maybe him. I picture him like, maybe they put some prosthetics, make him a little bit more like chunkier. I think he'd be a good snowman. Santa.
John Goodman would be a good Santa too.
Who? I'm sorry.
You could actually use John Goodman as Santa.
Yeah.
A good Santa. I could see that.
I think also for like the child. I mean, it's hard to find child actors, but I'm trying to find like if I could find like maybe Dakota Fanning has like a young cousin.
Something like that.
Someone like her. But yeah, I feel like for me, I think I talked about this before in one of our early episodes, maybe even our first one. I think it's one of the. If you're into movies, you want to write movies. It's called like How to Make $1 Billion in the Box Office. It's the guys who made Reno 911. It's such a fun book to read. It's about like, I think I explained this already in the past, but if those haven't revisited our old episodes, basically the book kind of alternates chapters. So like chapter 1 is like, all right, how to write, and the second chapter is then it alternates. So the second chapter would be about them telling a story about how they wrote a film, or like behind the scenes crap, and it alternates, and it's great, and it really gives you an insight about like if you want to make a real serious art house movie, this book isn't for you. If you want to make money, this book is for you. So this is like, for me, that kind of realm. Like, I know this isn't going to win an Oscar, but make some money and, keep the holiday spirit. Mm-hmm.
Now, would you make a sequel, or is it a standalone?
I guess
Reboot makes tons of money. It's an instant hit. It's a holiday classic. Do you go back with Frosty 2?
I think I would, and I would take inspiration. I think we talked about our past episode about our favorite Christmas movies. Mm-hmm. Is the Christmas Chronicles, because the first one. This is just a plot summary and no spoilers. So the first one, it's with Kurt Russell. Mm-hmm. He plays Santa Claus. So the first one, like these siblings, they want to catch Santa on camera, and they catch him, and they end up climbing into his sleigh, and it turns into an adventure. But the second one isn't about that. The second one is you have some of the same characters, but it actually takes place at the North Pole, and basically Santa Claus, he has like a falling out with like one of his elves, so that elves takes revenge, Okay. So I think I think for me, the golden rule of any sequel, it shouldn't be a direct repeat of the first one. You know, it should, because most times you actually fall in love with the characters. So I think you need to put the characters in a totally different scenario.
I agree.
So I think with my Frosty reboot, I would have them take place like in the North Pole. Maybe have them because there's magic in it. So there's a real Santa. Obviously, Frosty's real. So maybe you have some kind of thing in 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 the North Pole. Maybe you have them. I know this is done before, like they fight Jack Frost, or maybe you have them. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Like the Heat Miser, Frosty and Santa.
Yeah, exactly. You have them kind of like battle. You have some kind of thing, and maybe you bring Karen. I don't know. You got to tie in some kind of human character. For the audience to connect with. But yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Would you, PJ? Would you have a sequel? What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I was thinking like, would I have a sequel to mine? And the answer is I would like to if I ever made a movie like this. But it becomes a little bit trickier because where do you go? Like we've tied this guy into a nuclear reactor. So, but I was thinking one of two things. It's either a prequel to that, and maybe we're in it's not necessarily. Maybe it's the same universe, but not the same character. Yeah. And the prequel is maybe in very similar setting, but Japan when the bomb drops, right?
Right. Oh, okay.
or do we keep it closer to home? And I was thinking about this. If you remember, on Long Island out east, there was the Shoreham plant. We built a nuclear plant, but it never went live. The towns and the local governments and the people fought against it. They didn't want a live nuclear plant on the island. But maybe we bring it close to home and we have a little bit of a nuclear situation right here on Long Island, and we have to save the Christmas on the island, and maybe we can use the same Santa. He just travels to all the nuclear sites. Maybe that's it, Nick. He goes.
Yeah, I also thought in my mind that for a sequel, it takes place in like Ukraine, whatever it is. I think Krampus. I think that origin is Eastern European. So maybe you have like some kind of like wacko. Where he's not really like magical. He's just a nut. Who takes on that persona, like that urban, that legend, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he starts hurting people, and maybe that Santa, your Nicholas has to fight this guy, like, in the nuclear reactor of Chernobyl.
Or maybe the Krampus is another person that just got infected by the radiation, and now he's gone a little mad and
there you go. Yeah.
To the town. Yeah, that's even better. That's a great idea too.
This isn't I
was gonna say, I feel like Christmas movies, I enjoy them for what they are, but a lot of the times it's a little bit too much. Like there's too much wholesomeness to them. Like you can only watch so many of these a year until you're like, all right, I get it. You know what I mean? So I think going a different route. That's why I liked the what was the name of that movie we talked about the other day? Violent Night.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why it was different. It still had a little bit of the Christmas charm, but it was a little more violent, darker. I like that piece of it. Right.
I'm curious, PJ. Is there any movies that you watch during Christmas time, even though they're not about Christmas? Not like Die Hard, where it takes place on Christmas Day, but like a movie that's like you just kind of tend to watch during like the winter, let's say, or is there anything like that?
I mean, I usually do watch like Batman Returns, although that does take place on Christmas at the beginning. So I mean,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything that I specifically watch around that time because I'm trying to think. That's a really good question because there are movies I watch on a cycle. Like I watch every year, every Star Wars movies in a row, but that doesn't really happen in December. I think I tend to watch a lot of superhero movies in December. I think I do go back and rewatch like the Batman '89s. I find like those are comforting movies to me, and I watch comfort movies during the comforting seasons.
Yeah. I think for my wife and I were watching, and I think kind of like Batman Returns, where it's like this. I guess maybe in this series it takes there's some moments of Christmas time is Harry Potter.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. It just feels like a Christmas movie, even though there's nothing to do about Christmas. Something about it. Maybe because it's the magic. Maybe that's what it is.
Right. And I think it takes place in the winter, some of those movies. There's a lot of snow in them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, I think that I find that during this time of the year, you want to watch something that brings like happy memories in general. And that's like a comforting movie. So that's kind of where I go. And those older Batman movies or even the old Superman movies, like they don't have anything to do with Christmas, but he's in the Fortress of Solitude, which is all ice.
Yeah.
Like in those kind of movies, it's like a warm blanket because you're so familiar with them.
Right. I think a good movie too for those who are want to watch a movie that's not really about Christmas, but takes place during the winter. Is you ever see Snowpiercer?
Yes.
That's a cool movie, man. That's like another like I don't even know how to even explain it to the folks at home. Basically, it's like takes place in the future, in the world, is completely frozen. Let's say I don't know, it's in a new ice age. There we go, and it takes place on this train, and there's a lot of metaphors in this film in terms of like classism and anyway, the hero of the film. I think Captain America plays it, right? What's his name?
Oh,
Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the main character, folks, and he is like he has to get to the train conductor. He's like the main villain, But it's a lot more deep. This kind of reminds me of like Mad Max in a way, But that's a good one. I'm trying to think of that same director made like I think I haven't seen
Leo DiCaprio in the snow. Is that The Revenant?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's a good choice. Yeah. Even like I think we talked about this in our Tarantino episode. I guess The Hateful Eight that takes place during winter.
I just think it has to be a comfort movie, something that you find like with some sort of memory that you just really, I watch a lot of the Kevin Smith movies, I think, around this time of the year because those are something that I just find that brings me joy because I like them so much. And this is the kind of season where you just want to watch something that's a warm hug.
Of course.
Frozen, with Olaf. Yeah. I think that's not a Christmas movie, but there's a snowman in it. It feels Christmassy.
Yeah. So, PJ, I want to pitch you another film, another holiday movie, though. So, obviously, Christmas season, we know is like it takes over the holiday season. We know Christmas, but there's other holidays, folks, right? And now we obviously Hanukkah, and you have Kwanzaa. I think Eid. That's like a Muslim holiday, I believe. I think that takes place more of like October or September kind of thing. But it seems like all these other holidays are getting their spotlight. But I feel like there are not enough other holiday movies, like Hanukkah and all that kind of stuff. So, PJ, I want to pitch you my Hanukkah film. Okay. So I don't really have a title for it. I think it's already. I think it stars Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler, two Jewish actors. Okay, and I think Adam Sandler only has a movie called this like 8 Crazy Nights or 8 Crazy Days.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is for me. They're basically kind of like neighbors. Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler. They kind of like basically live across the street from each other. And they're like the only like Jewish families live on the block, and everyone else they're surrounded by Christmas. But they almost have like a rivalry, maybe from like high school or something. They happen to live across each other. So like basically, I didn't go as deep as my Frosty film, but for this, I just picture this be a really good comedy of them just competing against each other in this 8 days where they're trying to like. Who has the better menorah?
Right.
Who has the better thing display outside their lawn? And like of course they drag their families into this. You can have like their kids are fighting with one another, and they're trying to Ben Stiller's trying to recruit his neighbor who's like a really good Christmas display to like help him like make a nice like
display.
Yeah, and it just becomes crazy competitive and like look, I don't know exactly all what Hanukkah celebrates, in terms of like the spirit of it, honestly. But I guess like you want to type. I guess I'm more of the wholesome person, They learn to like maybe at one point like maybe Adam Sandler and him are both like trying to choke each other. They're like choking each other out with like menorahs, like so, and their wives and everyone's like, you gotta stop. This isn't what Hanukkah's about, Maybe they light something up on fire back that, someone else's Christmas tree, and it just goes off the wall. And, they forget about what it's about, gratitude and family and giving, and, I'm not really sure what the faith is about completely, but I don't know if there's like what each day signifies. If it's, I don't know.
Right.
I apologize for my ignorance, but I think you can really make a good comedy with these very physical comedy, and I think I think it's a movie like, because I have friends who are Jewish or whatever, and they love these movies. They love Home Alone. They love all this stuff. So I think you don't have to be Jewish to like this film. I think if you know comedy and you see just competitiveness, and these two actors are amazing. I don't think they've ever been in a film together. I don't, actually no, you have, but like like small roles, like one's like a cameo more or less. But I really like to see these two guys go head to head.
And then I can then picture the sequel. They're now on the same side, and then Seth Rogen moves to town. And then they have to team up against Seth Rogen in the sequel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look at that, man. We made $1 billion right there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, too, I'm like, there's not a lot of Hanukkah movies. There's certainly, as far as I know, no Kwanzaa movies, or if they are, they aren't mainstream at all. But when you're a kid and you learn about these holidays, like for me, I mean, we went to like all the religious classes and shit that our parents made us do. So we know the story of like Christmas and what it's about, but you learn about the stuff though through movies a lot of the time. Like I learned about like the spirit of Christmas because I watched the Rankin Bass movies, and like that's kind of how I would almost go back to that and make that style of movie that's good for all ages. Bring back the puppets. I don't know what puppets you would have in a Hanukkah or a Kwanzaa movie. Like I would love to see a Kwanzaa puppet movie that stop motion animation.
Maybe like that claymation, like in
like go back
Christmas, or like Chicken Run, one of those kind of things.
I would go back to that and make a movie in that style that feels like it. I wouldn't even make it a big movie theater release. I would make it like a holiday special on like a CBS. 45 minutes to an hour, something small that just tells the story in that way. When we were kids, I don't know if you remember this. I mean, the only way I learned anything about like what Hanukkah was were the Maccababies and Rugrats.
Yes, dude. I was just about to say the episode of Rugrats. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
That's like the only way like we learned about that, because you're right. Christmas takes over the holiday season. You don't hear anything about Hanukkah. You don't hear anything. But that one cartoon had an episode. I think that's the route you got to go. I think you have to make these things, I don't want to say mainstream, because really none of the holidays should be about,
right, of course,
profits or anything like that, or just like commercializing things. But at the same time, you don't learn about these things unless there's a movie. That's just the way it's going to be. Just unless there's a movie or a TV show, most people aren't going to learn about these other holidays.
Yeah, and it's funny you say it, because I was going to bring up the Rugrats. The Rugrats actually had an episode about Passover too.
Yeah, they did. Yep.
Yeah, and I always like when they like had the characters like play parts. I think like Tommy was Moses, and like I forgot who Chucky. But Chucky is great. When his like he's such a nervous wreck, and he's like, you know what I mean?
I think that's a great. I think that's a great premise. I could see that movie coming out in like the holiday season. I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, I could totally see that being like a real thing.
Yeah, I just in my mind, I guess especially then they and I just picture like a lot of the physical comedy and like like using dreidels as like they can use them as like grenades as a joke, like using like a slingshot, using them as like ammo or all that kind of stuff. And they'll be like maybe they're at temple, they're kind of giving each other like the eye, like they keep trying to outdo each other's like presents for their kids, like they keep getting a car and then it's like a convertible, and and their wives end up beginning all the kids like it because or the wives like get rings or jewelry, but then it becomes off the wall, and really make it
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, and I can picture them too, like in my mind, like them like at like, so I guess like the climax of the film where they lose their families, it's a big falling out, and they're like at a bar next to each other, like, what did we do, and they have to like redeem it or something like that. So, but yeah, those are my thing. And then I don't have anything for Kwanzaa. I did look it up. PJ, do you know what Kwanzaa is about?
I looked it up, but I'll be honest, I don't really grasp the full concept of this.
Yes, thank you. It seems that it's almost, well, I do know this. It takes place basically after Christmas, from the 26th to the 1st, January 1st.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's really more about like, if I understand, like just celebrating the Black community, and I think that's what it's about necessarily. I don't know how the candles tie into that, but
Yeah, I didn't find like when I was looking at it like a religious component to it. I didn't see one unless I just didn't look deep enough.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, so I think, but I think you can make a movie, with that. Especially now, those things are very big nowadays. About different cultures and that kind of stuff. I think you can, and much like my Ben Stiller, Adam Sandler film, I think you can tie that into something because you never see movies that take place after Christmas, so that could be kind of funny,
right?
Like it's like the aftermath where everyone's kind of like exhausted, and you can make it funny too, and like now you have to celebrate that now and New Year's Eve,
Right.
So, but PJ, I'm going to ask you not a pop quiz, but I guess a pop question. Okay, so we just talked about holiday movies, right? In the past, we talked about our Halloween films in one of the past episodes. We talked about obviously Christmas now and Hanukkah. What would you do for a New Year's Eve film? What would you do?
Ooh, a New Year's Eve movie. Well, I mean, it would have to be a comedy. I don't see any way around it. It has to be a comedy, and it has to just revolve around how miserable Christmas. How miserable it is. Yeah, New Year's Eve is. Yeah, it would have to be just a disaster at people trying to go into a party. Everyone's late to the party. They're about to miss the ball drop. It has to be something like that.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
The other route is I go a horror route again. Right, you can go a horror route, and you're on New Year's Eve, so something's going to happen when
the ball drops or something.
The ball drops, right? And maybe not horror, maybe more of a thriller. Is the?
I was going to say, in my mind, I automatically thought of like Die Hard. Like Bruce Willis. He's like in this building, maybe in New York City, and he's like till that ball drops, and like that could be really climactic, man. If you think about it now, like like a bomb goes off and there's like all the glitter and all that kind of shit coming.
It could be a decent setting for like a superhero movie, because if you think about it, like the villain is trying to do whatever he's going to do in the city. Like call it Metropolis, it doesn't matter,
right?
Or Gotham, right? And if it's Gotham, maybe the Joker is planning something, and he's gonna, when the ball drops at the end of Gotham is going to explode, and Batman has to try and stop it. Like that would be a good setting, I think, for a superhero movie. You could definitely work as an animated superhero movie too. They drop in a one-off episode or something. But I think that would be an interesting route. To go.
And I think, and Peter, what I love about that whole thing, especially with the superhero thing, what you said is, it sounds I think what superhero movies need now, or movies in general need now, is something. Big characters on a small scale where it's not the end of the world. It's like the Joker's going to release a laughing gas that's going to poison you. It's not, like, I think we need a film like that where it's just kind of very like, even like you think about Batman 89, it was pretty straightforward. You know what I mean? It's not like this end of the world and all. It was just, took place just in this one city. That was
Gotham,
it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I could see that as a pretty good setting.
I think that's a great idea. Very good. Wonderful. So, PJ, I think that might be wrapping it up. I think for our little holiday reboot, my man.
I think so. I think you've made some good ideas for some holiday movies. Maybe someone in Hollywood wants to hire us.
Yeah, these are some good ideas. Right now, we should maybe we'll put some reels. Maybe the right person will see it and they'll take our idea.
Yeah.
The folks, you know where to find us at the North Pole. Same time, same table.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Boys and girls, lunchtime is over. Please visit PJ and Mike's website, coolkidslunchtable.podbean.com for more information. Follow the boys on all social media apps. Just search Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. Now get to class before you get detention.